Federal Bureau of Investigation. Michael Franzese was advised of the identity of the interviewing agents. Franzese was advised that he was being interviewed under the conditions of a previous agreement he entered into with the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois, and that this agreement provided for his providing information to the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other representatives of the U.S. Attorney's Office under use immunity. Franzese was further advised that his interview could possibly become part of a public proceeding at the upcoming trial of Norby Walters. He was further advised that interviewing agents wanted to discuss with him allegations that he was involved in murders or conspiracies to commit murders. Franzese understood the nature of the interview and thereafter provided the following information. Franzese stated that he has never himself personally participated in the murder of any individual. He further added that he has never shot anyone. Franzese was questioned about his becoming a made member of the Colombo organized crime family. He was asked to comment that interviewing agents understood that it was a common practice for someone to be required to commit a murder prior to becoming a bona fide made member. Franzese explained that during the early 1970s, the book was open. Franzese continued explaining that he and other individuals who were made members with him during the same ceremony, which occurred on October 31, 1975, were not required to kill someone. He stated that they had to give their commitment that if it became necessary for them to kill someone, they would follow their instructions. Franzese stated that on October 31, 1975, the following individuals were also, in his terms, straightened out: Jimmy Angelina, Sal Michiota, John Minerva, Jerry Brown, Vito Guzzo. Franzese continued, stating that he never got the call to commit a gangland murder. He further added that his father, John Sonny Franzese, vouched for him and in essence made it easier for him to become a made member of the Colombo family. He further added that his father had explained to the boss of the Colombo family, Carmine Persico, that Franzese had a business talent, and that he would be a valuable asset to the Colombo family. Franzese was asked to comment that he allegedly authorized the murder of an individual on at least 2 separate occasions. Franzese commented that he had no problems discussing with interviewing agents the areas of questioning that were being pursued and the allegations that he authorized murdering individuals. Franzese, however, desired to explain that he has attempted in the past to provide this information to the FBI, and in particular to FBI Special Agent Dan Lyons. Franzese stated that Lyons, under the conditions of his agreement with the Eastern District of New York, sought permission of Strike Force Chief Ed McDonald to discuss murder cases. Franzese stated that Lyons, at a later date, advised him that McDonald did not desire to have Franzese interviewed about murder situations, fearing that the government may be placed in a position of not being able to prosecute Franzese for his possible involvement in murders. Franzese continued, stating that he was fearful that McDonald would misconstrue information that he was providing and attempt to link Franzese through racketeering or conspiracy statutes, the murders committed by members of organized crime. Franzese continued, stating that in his own mind, he felt that it could be construed that he possibly was involved in the authorizing of 2 murders. Franzese explained the 2 occasions. 1. Franzese was called downtown by Colombo boss Carmine Persico to vouch for Vinny Carrizza. Franzese explained that Persico wanted to know if Carrizza was a stand-up guy. He stated that the boss was asking for a specific recommendation. He stated that the boss had hinted to him that the Colombo family had some work for Carrizza to perform. Franzese explained that work in organized crime terminology could mean a variety of things: murder, extortion, armed robbery, jewelry heist. Franzese stated that while the boss did not explain what type of work Carrizza was to perform, he in any event vouched for Carrizza and indicated that Carrizza was a stand-up guy. Franzese stated that on a later occasion, he found out that Vinny Carrizza was involved in a murder. 2. Franzese advised that he again was called downtown by Colombo family boss to vouch for Bob Marshall. Franzese explained that Marshall was in prison with his father, Sonny. Franzese stated that B was instructed by his father to go downtown and vouch for Marshall, and to make an introduction for him. He stated that after vouching for Marshall, he later learned that Marshall was involved with the murder of John Spontini. Franzese estimated that the murder of Spontini occurred in the late 1970s. Franzese was asked to comment about incidents in his past wherein allegations could be made, or that it could be construed that he himself participated physically in murders. Franzese provided the following information. 1. Larry Carriza. Franzese stated that he was called to go downtown for a meeting, at which meeting he was questioned by high-ranking members of the Colombo organized crime family, namely Jimmy Angelina and Joseph Tomisolo, also known as Joe T. Franzese stated that other individuals may have been at this meeting, but B was certain that Joe T. and Angelina were there. Franzese explained that Larry Carriza was associated with Andrew Russo, a captain in the Colombo family. He stated that Carriza was not a made member of the Colombo family. He stated that he was close to Carriza and that Carriza baptized his son, John. He added that at the meeting he was told that Carriza was dealing drugs in Brooklyn and was having an affair with his sister. Franzese stated that he was shocked to hear this information, and that he immediately defended his sister. He further stated that he wanted to make an inquiry with his sister as to her personal relationship with Carriza. He stated that he was told at the meeting not to make any inquiries, and that he was to not warn anyone and to let the matter die. Franzese further commented that he could tell by the tone of the conversation that Carriza had a serious problem. He stated that within a short period of time Carriza was killed. Franzese stated that he also later learned that Jimmy Angelina and Chuck Rosso were responsible for the murder of Carriza. Franzese reiterated that he himself did not personally have anything to do with the murder of Carriza. However, he did have first-hand conversations about it, and that he was later told that Carriza was murdered in order to protect the honor of his father and himself, and also because of drug dealings. Franzese continued, commenting that because he did not report to law enforcement authorities his suspicions as to what was possibly going to happen to Carriza, he felt he, through the use of racketeering and/or RICO statutes, could be charged with participating in the murder of Carriza. 2. Tommy, last name unknown. Tommy had done time with Franzese's father Sonny and Junior Persico. Tommy was murdered in 1982 or 1983. Franzese explained that Tommy's murder was a result of Tommy's involvement in kidnappings. Franzese explained that again, he was called to go downtown to attend a meeting. At the meeting was Alley Boy, Joe T. and Scappy. Franzese stated that he was asked to visit his father in prison and discuss with his father whether or not Tommy had confided in his father any information about doing kidnappings. Franzese stated that his father vigorously stood up for Tommy. He stated that the family was attempting to get to the bottom of the kidnappings. Franzese continued explaining that Tommy was accused of doing kidnappings of other organized crime family associates and members outside the Colombo organized crime family structure. Franzese stated that after meeting with his father, he carried the message back that his father considered Tommy to be a good guy. Franzese continued explaining that he was usually used as a go-between with his father, and especially during the period when his father was on parole. Franzese continued explaining that later on in 1981 or 1982, Tommy was murdered. Franzese stated that he could not recall the names of the individuals who murdered Tommy other than he thought that one of their first names was Paul. He stated that 2 individuals were responsible for the murder, and that they were relatively new members of the Colombo organized crime family. He stated that he felt certain he would be able to identify the photographs of the individuals. He further stated that he learned that they had committed the murders at a Colombo family meeting and dinner wherein these individuals had made comments about the individual doing the kidnappings, and that they had killed him. Franzese stated that it was not uncommon for people to talk at family meetings. He stated that he often overheard other conversations by individuals about being involved in other crimes. He stated that obviously these other individuals did not know that he possibly was called to a meeting concerning any one particular situation, but by listening to others' comments, Franzese was able to piece together who was responsible for certain crimes. 3. John Spontini. Franzese stated that John Spontini was murdered in the late 1970s. He stated that Junior Persico hated Spontini. Franzese stated that Spontini and Persico were in prison together. Franzese stated that he knew that Bob Marshall was responsible for the murder Spontini. He stated that he was told by Marshall that Marshall did the murder of Spontini. Later, Franzese and his father talked about the murder. Franzese denied that he has ever driven a vehicle that was involved in a murder. He also denied that he has ever made telephone calls, conducted physical surveillances, or provided weapons to be used in a murder. Franzese further added that he did not physically participate in any murders other than to have conversations about a murder, or about a particular situation which he felt from the tone of the conversation may have led to a murder. He further added that he often heard a lot of conversations about a variety of events concerning numerous different individuals. There were numerous occasions wherein Franzese was questioned about individuals when nothing later happened. But Franzese was under the impression something may have happened to the individual. Conversations of this nature were commonplace. Franzese stated that after not seeing an individual around over a period of time, he naturally assumed that possibly the person was the victim of a contract murder.